Welcome. You are tuned into another episode of Community Chat. My name is Kevin Tocci, and I will be your host for this segment. These special shows are actually geared towards the individuals who are on the ballot for the upcoming town election on April 29th. It's going to be held over at the Beaverbrook Elementary School. And if you're not sure about what goes on, or if you are registered to vote, or if you can still register to vote, you want to contact the town clerk's office. But we are going to be talking with candidates who are running for selectmen, planning board, and school committee. So happens that our guest today is a gentleman who is currently on the school committee. He is seeking re-election. We have Mr. Chris Coyle joining us.
Thank you,
Coyle,
Kevin.
how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Let's start out with some of the basics.
Okay.
For folks who may or may not know you, maybe they're new to town, to town elections.
Sure. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, name is Chris Coyle. I lived in town for about 15 years now. I'm originally from Rhode Island, born and raised in Rhode Island. Moved here in 2000. Moved to Bridgewater in 2003, and then Abington 2006. So I've been here since then. I joined the school committee originally in 2017. Ran for election. It was the same kind of setup it is now. It was two people running for re-election. I was running to get on. I ended up winning one of those seats. I ran for re-election in 2020. That was an uncontested race. It was just two of us and get on, and now here I am again today. Currently the chair of the school committee through at least the election anyway, and I guess then there's reorganizations after that. But that's a brief synopsis, I guess, of me and my roles here. So
let's talk about your experience, your knowledge when it comes to the school system and dealing with providing all the elements when it comes to education here in Abington.
So, is there something specific that you want me to focus on?
Talk about maybe some of your background as far as how you came to be on the school committee and how you felt that it's been something that's been an asset to something that you've done in your personal life that's kind of helped you excel.
Okay. So the biggest thing and the biggest reason I joined is I'm a parent, right? Like almost everybody who's on there now, who's running now, we're all parents. We all want what's best for our kids. We all want what's best for all the kids in the community. I originally attended some of the meetings. I was on the PTO board from the now, I guess defunct is the wrong word, but closed center school. So that was at the time my only interaction with the schools. I ended up running. I felt that I was going to be a great asset. I feel I've done a good job on there. Nobody's perfect. We've all made our mistakes there. But I've also looked to improve as many things as I can. I feel the work together we do as a team on the committee is something that I'm happy to say that we all are involved in. There's differing viewpoints, but we all work together to try to get to common ground on what's best for kids. That's always our goal, is what's best for kids.
What do you feel are the public's main concerns regarding the town school system?
I think the public, I think it can be split. Sometimes what we hear the most of isn't necessarily what I feel maybe behind the scenes. I think it's twofold. I think there's a lot of people seeing that our community is growing. One of the things I hear a lot from about people is how are we going to be able to, like the elementary schools seem to greatly be growing, and class size is the thing we really want to try to keep down, especially at that level. When you have 25 plus kids that are age 8 and under, it's very difficult to run a classroom in that environment. So that's some of the concerns I hear. Obviously what's been public lately is from the masks onto the books that have been a hot topic. The Good Friday holiday is also now something that's been on the agenda. So those are some of the things that we've also heard about. But in the background, we're still trying to focus on how to best operate our schools and the budget that we have with the funds that we have.
So a couple of items that you just mentioned, masks, books, Good Friday holiday. How do you handle something that the public wants to come and address that maybe they're passionate about? How do you as an individual, how do you handle that and want to hear from them? What challenges come with that as well?
The biggest challenge is making sure that it's presented in an orderly manner, an appropriate manner. When I handle it, I try to let everybody speak. our policy calls for 3 minutes. I've never used that. I've asked people to try to keep that in mind, but I've never stopped anybody from talking that has to talk about whatever the subject may be. I think it's important to hear from everybody, to hear what they have to say. And that's the public's input is what goes into making our decisions. Sometimes I feel the mask, for example, that was a state mandate so much that wasn't in our purview to change. I know it was a very passionate debate. The Abington Public Schools did not have a mask policy once that went into effect. It was run by the state, and we simply followed what the state mandate was at that time. Convincing people of that can sometimes be difficult, but we try to do our best as a group, but listening to what everybody has to say, I feel is something that's very important, and I feel that I've accomplished so far through 6 years.
Let's talk about challenges that the school system could be facing in the near future. What should the committee address when it comes to those needs and challenges?
I think one of the biggest needs we're starting to see, and it's hard to keep up with, is the proper education for our English language learners, the English second language. There are certain protocols to follow, and we need the right teachers, the right amount of people to help these kids grow and learn as best they can. They obviously have their own struggles because they don't speak English as a primary language at home. We need to make sure that we have the proper tools in place, the proper teachers, the proper technology in place to help them best reach the best of their ability.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the school budget.
Okay.
It's kind of a big deal.
Yes.
Your understanding of how it's funded, what needs to be done consistently provide for the district's educational needs. I know being on there, on that committee for 6 years, you have an understanding, kind of share that with the viewers.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So the biggest thing that we face is, so we just had our budget passed, thank you to the town, through town meeting. And there was a large jump in spending when you look at it from the school department perspective. One of the biggest reasons for that is that we have currently ESSER funds, federal funds that help run some of our programs that were designed to get kids back up to speed after the COVID pandemic. As that money's not going to be around forever. So as part of the budget process, it was a matter of bringing some of those programs that are funded by those ESSER grants into our normal operating budget so we don't have a huge jump, say 2 years from now when all those funds are gone. I want to thank the town for their support in passing our budget. They understand the needs that we have as the school department. I think I hit on another one, the class size. We want to make sure we're keeping our classes as small as possible within our budget to provide the best education possible for all grades. I think I mentioned the elementary is a big focus there, but for all grades, it's hard for a teacher to teach a class of 28 kids, much easier when it's in the 22 range. And we do still have a couple of things that are being funded by the ESSER grants. I mentioned at town meeting the math interventionists. That is a new program at the middle school. We have 2 of them, one for 5th and 6th, one for 7th and 8th, to work with those children that need the help in math in a separate environment, a separate area of the building, and it seems to be doing well for all of them involved.
Let's talk about capital needs. When I talk capital needs, it's as far as building repairs, needs. Yeah. Maybe it might be, maybe one day to build another elementary school. Who knows? Yeah. What do you feel are some of the essential needs at this particular time?
So, as part of the budget that we just had, part of our capital plans were, one is the laptops. The laptop replacements. So, for those that don't know, the middle high school, when you enter now 5th grade, you're assigned a laptop, and for most people that know, laptops don't have an unlimited lifespan. They need to be replaced. So as part of our capital plan, working with the town and part of the town's capital plan, we came to an agreement to gradually have a plan to replace those laptops as we go. So it's not $1 million all at once. I think at some point in the future, I don't know how far down the road, that a new elementary school may have to be something that's discussed. And depending on, honestly, how the population of this town continues to grow and where those age groups are that are really blowing up, where we don't see them coming we try to do a census every year. We're looking at births, but what you can't account for is a new influx of a certain grade. And it does sometimes happen where it's a certain grade that gets hit. Honestly, Kevin, it could happen in August, right? Then you're in a tough spot. You've kind of planned for a certain thing and you have to adjust. So I think those are some of the things coming down the line that we have to keep looking towards to try to minimize the impact they have on the learning of children.
I want to digress. Earlier when you mentioned it, you were talking about the budget itself and your understanding of it. Yeah. You mentioned class sizes. Yeah. and I think you use the number of 22. Now, is that something that's across the board for all ages, and this is also fall into if there's an aide or a paraprofessional that is with that teacher?
So it doesn't so much, the aide paraprofessional, it doesn't have as much of an impact. 22 is not an across the board. In fact, if any teacher saw this, they'd probably tell me that. My idea was that in that low to mid 20s is much better than the mid to upper 20s. So it's never universal. There is no quote unquote limit as to what the classroom is. We all have our own in our minds about what it should be, and we do our best to get there with what we have to work with each year between number of classrooms, number of classroom teachers, and the money to be able to afford them too. So,
okay, let's talk educational programs. What do you feel that the school district should look to add or offer in the future?
So I think one that we've heard quite a bit about is our only language right now is in the high school is Spanish. We have heard a great push of teachers, parents, staff would love to add a Portuguese program as well. It was one of those things that was discussed in our initial budget this year, actually, and it may have been right on the cut line, right on either side of it in the initial pass of the budget. But as we got into working with the town, what we were able to spend, it was one of those things that we just couldn't afford based on the other programs we needed to fund, namely the English language learners I mentioned, adjustment counselors, which have become a big topic since the COVID pandemic to help kids get back on track in learning. So those are the ones I think we feel like we have to keep, and adding of another language to the high school, more than likely would be Portuguese, would be something in the future we'd look to do.
I know it's something that we haven't seen in a few years, but I feel that budgets, it's cyclical.
Yeah.
1-2 years they can be up. You have a robust funding source from the state. Sometimes you have to cut certain things.
Yeah.
If you have your say and you're able to provide your input, what types of programs would you want to make sure are preserved and saved at all costs?
I think that we have to make sure, obviously we have to keep the programs that are needed for core requirements of graduates, right? The math, the English, the science. And there are certain things that we have to do to meet state standards, and I feel it's very important. I'm the parent of a special ed child. There are the special ed numbers at times are also growing in classrooms. So those teachers are facing the same thing, and they they almost can't have a 20-to-1 ratio, right? So programs that help the children of the most difficult learning, I feel are the most important to keep. To keep a good special ed program, good special ed teachers, good ELL teachers, in the lower grades funding our anything that's needed for our sub-separate type classrooms where the children who need the most are getting the most that they can. I feel like those are things I would fight to keep as much as possible, along with the things that are requirements for graduation.
Okay. How about stuff like arts and sports?
I'm a huge sports fan. The arts as well. I think they are all very important. If it was a matter of if it came down to the very last dollar, then a decision would have to be made. I would hope it would never get to that. I do know there was a point in time where the boosters were funding the junior varsity programs. That they don't do that, and I don't think they should have to. So I would hope that it wouldn't get to that. If the decision came at a certain point, we'd all five of us would have to, working with in conjunction with the superintendent, what we'd have to do that's best and needed for our town at that moment.
Okay. We're at that point in our conversation where I kind of turn it to you.
Okay.
Is there something that we haven't discussed or I haven't asked, or maybe there's something we talked about but you might want to reiterate or kind of add to at this point in our conversation?
I think it's maybe just a couple things. I think some of my priorities to start off another term, we obviously have a new superintendent, Dr. Michella, will be starting in July 1st, 2024. So the first year of my term, of my new term, if I were to be reelected, there'll probably be a lot of focus on the transition of her. Now, she's not new to the district, but she'll be new to the role. Working with her and Superintendent Schaefer on transitioning their roles, how we fill central office roles after she becomes the superintendent. And then going forward, I would really like to get our focus back to the things that help drive the education of our students, the core things that help drive, and the core things that our committee is really assigned to do based on state guidelines, which is the budget, policies within the school, and then evaluations of the superintendent. Over the last few years, things have obviously sometimes strayed away from that, and I understand it. But I would like to try to get out of the national political climate as much as possible. Coming up, I am not a politician. I don't want to be a politician. I'm doing this because I'm a parent, and I feel it's how I can best contribute for my children and all the children that are in our district. So I guess that's the best way I'd want to close about why I'm doing it and what I'm looking forward to doing.
Folks want to reach out with you if they have any questions, they want to learn more about your campaign for re-election. Sure. How can they do that?
So I have a Facebook page that's online. It's Christopher Coyle, Abington School Committee. And then also, because I have a current school email address, it's Christopher Coyle, C-O-Y-L-E, at abingtonps.org. No spaces anywhere in there.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Kevin. I appreciate you taking the time.
You got it. And we want to thank you for tuning into programs like this. The idea of this show and the others that are similar to it is to better inform you about the candidates who are seeking your vote come April 29th. Again, it's going to be at the Beaverbrook. If you're not sure in regards to voting here in the town of Abington, definitely reach out to the town clerk's office for more information. Until our next conversation, have a great day.